Put in writing what needs to be repeated and share it. This is team leader principles number 8. And I'm Nick McLean, and I'm co-founder of the Team Growth Movement. And in today's principle, it's putting things in writing that need to be shared, that can be repeated, or putting things in writing that are likely to come up again in your organization, your team, so that other people can read it before that happens to them. Answer their questions before they're asked. It's a simple principle that you can use with your clients, but definitely use it with your team agents. And as a leader, I want you to think in this framework. What do I know? Who needs to know it? And do they know it yet? So I'll give you many different examples, but I want you to understand that principle. If you know something to be true, you know something that is important, you know how to do something, you found out a team member had an issue or a problem or a mistake or an error or omission, you have that information. The team leader is the bottleneck, but is also the leverage point for growth of the company, because if you know it, you need to ask yourself, who else knows it? Or who else needs to know it? And do they know it yet? And then you get to decide how you're going to disseminate that information, how timely that information is, how important that information is, whether you need a memo or you need an urgent email, or it can wait till the next team meeting. So I talk all the time about one-on-many, and this is one of those examples. So for many, many years, I had what was called a broker's log. I was inspired by, Star Trek and, how they would create a log. And as a commercial airline pilot, I would have a log after every flight. And so basically what you do is, as information comes to you, questions, you receive the questions, you accept the questions, you invite the questions, where a lot of team leaders and broker owners don't want to be bothered because they're overwhelmed and stressed. And they get annoyed or angry when posed with a question, or they're interrupted. The proverbial got a minute. But I want you to embrace the got a minutes of this. Tell me, what is going on? How can I help you? I have a question, Nick. How do I write this offer? Or I have this client, I have this buyer, and they're doing this, they're saying this, they're asking this. I have this other agent, and they're asking this, they're telling me this. How does that work? I want you to take that in. I want you to problem solve it. Ask questions back to them. What do you think is the real problem here? What do you think the goal is? What are we trying to solve for? Tell me more about the situation. Backfill me in. What's the story? What have they said? And you ask very specific questions and uncover the root of the problem. And when you have this root of the problem, you can then ask them once you've agreed on how to define the problem, you can now ask them, how do we solve for the problem? And then once you have that and you prescribe the answer that you think is best, or the options that are available to that agent, you now have a framework. You now have a piece of information that you need to get to everyone else. Now, you might choose to wait to see how that unfolds before you deliver that to the team, but you definitely need to put it in the team. So that next morning, I might look at my broker's log and say, that was a question that I think is going to come up a lot, right? What do I do when someone calls me and they say, we want to cancel our listing? What do you do when someone says they want to cancel their listing and the listing agreement still has time left on it? What do you do when someone calls in and says, what else can we do to market my home? Or do you do open houses? Right? What do you do in those situations? What do you do when the buyer decides they want to back out and not ask for repairs on the home inspection? What do you do? How do you do that? How do you refer inspectors? All these things require something in writing. And so you write that down, you put it in writing. It could be a memo, it could be a standard operating procedures. Typically, I want the fewest rules possible. So I just want to inform first and foremost, and then reserve the things that are absolutely standard in terms of laws and regulations and company policies. And then I deliver that out to everybody. And obviously at the team meeting, I can tell the story about, Lindsay came to me and she had this question, and then I asked her these questions, and then she gave me these answers. And then we outlined our review and our options. What do you think the options are? And it can be an interactive meeting. but it's definitely a process. Now, as you acquire more and more of these God minutes, and you actually internalize them and write about them and deliver this information, you're going to have frequently asked questions. Just like your website should have frequently asked questions that a buyer will have or that a seller will have, right? What are the common questions that sellers have before they list their home with you? How do you schedule showings? How do you price a home? How much do you cost? What are you going to do and market the home? What happens if it doesn't sell? What happens if you want to cancel early? Frequently asked questions. What are those? Can you handle the objections before? We call them objections, but handling objections before they're asked. Just be preemptive on this. Same thing with agents. You have agents on your roster that are anywhere from brand new to 30 years of experience. And new agents and older agents make the same amount of mistakes just for different reasons. And so you have this frequently asked questions. A frequently asked question goes on a website, on a Slack channel, in a manual, in a policy handbook. Those should be commonplaces for your people. I love handbooks. As a commercial airline pilot, we had manuals, giant manuals, 500 pages, 1,000-page manuals. And then we also had checklists, but we also had handbooks. And handbooks were smaller, like pamphlets, like quick, easy answers to the most common questions. And they distilled like 30 pages down to a page. And it was nice to know. And it wasn't complete, but it was enough to get you through it. So if you're on a flight or you're figuring this out, you could be like, what do I do? And if there was a decompression of the airplane, right? What does that mean? What are the signals or the signs of a decompression, an explosive decompression or a subtle one or a minor one? What are those signs? What are the alarm bells and the enunciators that you're going to see? And what do you have to do? What's the checklist called? And where do you find it? And how does it affect your passengers or your next flight or the logbook? What are the signs? And so the pamphlet's just going to be a description of it, and a nice narrative on what to be. Is it what you pull out in the actual emergency? No, it's not what you pull out in the actual emergency. Is it what you do to learn in depth what it's about? No, but it gives you the top layer about it, right? So if I have a buyer that's out of town and they won't provide me with proof of funds or talk to my lender, this is how you handle a buyer that won't talk to a lender. Okay, it doesn't tell you how you get them pre-approved or how do you get in the CRM and change everything, but it does give you a framework you can use over and over and over again. So I want you to think about this principle, right, as you're building out your company. I want you to think about put in things in writing, what needs to be repeated, and then send it out. What do I know? Who needs to know it? And do they know it yet? It's a simple framework. I'm Nick McLean, founder of the Team Growth Movement, all things team building teams, growing teams, scaling teams, and enterprise teams that go out and merge and acquire under full acquisition or JV acquisitions. All things teams, you come to Nick McLean and the Team Growth Movement.